girly men when they get in his way. Now, as Morley Safer reports, the Austrian-born Schwarzenegger has an even bigger role in his sights, to one day be the President of the United States.
California is open for business.
Why did you do it? Had you become bored, fed up with acting?
Yes. And all of a sudden I realized that, I've done this, I've gotten to the top, I'm the highest paid actor that there ever was in the history.
I am a machine.
I've done all of those different things. And so I said to myself, I'm tired of the same things. I'm jumping over car hoods at 3 in the morning and then going up to someone and says, I'm back, and then blow him away or something. So all of this is great, but eventually it gets old.
I, Arnold Schwarzenegger,
do solemnly swear.
Leaving the fantasy of Hollywood for the button-down world of politics in Sacramento was not all that big a step. Both places have big egos, both spend big money, and both are often economical with the truth. In politics, stardom works, but only up to a point. As the kind of movie star that you were, certainly, you could be a dictator. You could say, I want it, and it gets done. You can't do that now.
You're absolutely correct. And now this is different. But look, this is the great thing about it, about adjusting from one career to the next. And the key thing always is to keep your eye on the ball.
Well, speaking of which, it took a lot of balls to go cold turkey into politics.
Yes, but I never had a lack of that. So may I remind you, it makes no difference to me because I always say, what's the worst that can happen? That you fail. That's really not that bad.
Arnold Schwarzenegger, 6'2" and 220 pounds of solid Austro-Hungarian muscle.
We first met Arnold Schwarzenegger 2 careers back, in 1977. He was 30, the king of the muscle man.
through bodybuilding, I did a lot of things, I got into the films.
And even then, he now says he was itching to move on.
One day I stood on a stage and I said, why am I standing here with my little posing trunks, oiled up, trying to be the most muscular man? Why?
He was always a quick study, and back then he'd already figured out the key element to his success in bodybuilding, in the movies,
I'll be back.
and in politics.
I feel that you can have the best product in the world, but if you don't know how to sell it, and if you don't have anybody who can sell it for you or tell the public, it's a waste of time, the whole thing.
I guess you kind of proved your point, yes?
Oh, absolutely. And I still say that. Selling and communicating to the people is the most important thing.
But you have to have an instinct for that. You can't learn that, right?
You can't learn it. You have it or you don't have it.
He's clearly got it through the consternation of critics who doubted he could survive in the cutthroat world of politics. What would you give yourself in a report card?
An 8.
An
From
8?
8 to 10. If 10 being the highest, I would give myself an 8. I think that I fell short on some of the things, probably with communications with the legislators.
And I hope that those that want to sell out to the special interests, those girly men up there in Sacramento.
Girly men. During a deadlock in budget talks, he aimed the line at Democrats in the legislature. Their leader, John Burton, was among those who thought the remark was insulting, and Burton was in no mood to deal with the governor.
Why would I possibly call him? What are you people, nuts? Hi, this is the scumbag girly boy. How you doing? Give my best to the kids.
And it drove them nuts. But the interesting thing about it is the following week, they sat down on the table and they signed the budget exactly the way it was a week before.
He was trying, he says, to underscore his belief that the legislature was on an out-of-control spending spree, putting special interest ahead of the public good.
I say, if you have the balls, you will go out there and say this to the people. If not, then you're a girly man. That's really what it is about. I think that you should have the guts to say that.
But the honeymoon with voters in the state legislature came to a crashing halt. Democrats and public employee unions went on the attack over the governor's proposed belt tightening. They dug his steps with protests and flooded the state with critical TV spots.
Governor Schwarzenegger, you ought to take your promises on education as seriously as we do.
Schwarzenegger's approval rating sank 20 points in 3 months, forcing him on the defensive.
Do you know that for every dollar the state takes in, the legislators spend $1.10?
He still commutes from Los Angeles to Sacramento every week. Showing us around the governor's domain in the Capitol building, he takes a kind of boyish pride in his wall of fame.
You missed
Great moments in the Schwarzenegger administration.
It's a great shot. Look at this with the American flag. And you totally missed it. You just walked by.
Poster boy.
Okay, I forgive you
Poster
for that.
boy.
Hello, everybody.
Even in the driest of settings, a meeting of his economic advisors, there's a Hollywood touch. Greeting the diminutive Nobel Prize winner Milton Friedman reminds the governor of his one-time co-star, Danny DeVito.
Do I look okay?
You look better, let's put it that way.
This is Twins 2. Look at this. Twins 2. Perfect.
And in his office, his favorite movie weapon, the sword from Conan the Barbarian, the film that made him a star.
This is the smoking tent.
Oh, it's wonderful.
This is where we made a lot of the deals.
You live like a pasha.
Well, I wouldn't say that. That's a little carried away, but I mean...
He wheels and deals in his smoking tent, set up in an open-air courtyard near his office. A place to schmooze and cajole, light up the biggest cigar in the world, and for good measure, outrage health advocates.
Here, for instance, we have Maria's wall. When we came into office, Maria walked around the horseshoe here, and she says, well, where are all the first ladies?
His wife, Maria Shriver, has been a high-profile first lady, active in women's causes. But the governor is quick to point out their political differences.
I show you Maria's office quickly, which is back here. But she, of course, has to be further away from my office because she's a Democrat.
Not just any Democrat, but a Kennedy. Which made it all the more unusual last summer when she went where no Kennedy had ventured, the Republican convention, where she watched her husband wow delegates with a tried and true Schwarzeneggerism.
And to those critics who are so pessimistic about our economy, I say, don't be economic girly man.
The governor parts ways with the president on a number of issues, none more controversial than embryonic stem cell research.
Well, I'm a religious Republican, too. I'm a Catholic. I go to church every Sunday. But it doesn't mean that I'm against progress. You see, we have to move forward with the stem cell research. This is the future of solving some of the serious problems that are existing in the medical area, and why not?
Normally, even a first-term California governor with Schwarzenegger's star power would be talked about as a potential future presidential candidate. But being foreign-born, he can't run. There are attempts to change that. You are ineligible, obviously, to run for president. Would you like to be able to? Would you like to see an amendment to the Constitution?
Yes, absolutely. I think, because why not? I mean, anyone that is like, with my way of thinking, you always shoot for the top. But it's not something that I'm preoccupied with. I'm not thinking one single minute about that. Because there's so many things that I have to do in California, and my promise was to straighten out the mess in California.
We concluded our visit with the governator by showing him the last few seconds of our first encounter 27 years ago, back when he was a 30-year-old on a very fast track.
Arnold Schwarzenegger is a contented soul. He's happy as a clam, strong as a horse. And if you find bodybuilding a funny thing for a grown-up, intelligent man to be doing, well, so does Arnold. And he's laughing with you, all the way to the bank.
What do you make of that, kid?
It's amazing to see that. So you have to get me a tape of that.
I will.
And I'm still laughing. Not all the way to the bank. My wife is screaming, "Now I make no money," because But at least have a good time, man. It's a challenging job, and I'm having the greatest time in the world doing this.